Hey Dunchbags, what's going on? It's Landon Remixes here, and welcome to my review of the fourth studio album from Cash Cash. This one is called Blood, Sweat, and 3 Years. Cash Cash is a three-piece EDM group who initially received popularity for their 2008 single, Party in Your Bedroom, but then regained a good chunk of popularity when they released Take Me Home featuring BB Rexa, which was their big EDM breakout hit. I was actually a big fan of Take Me Home back when it released in 2013, and I expected some sort of album to follow up after that, but it ended up being followed by the Overtime EP, which I actually liked quite a bit. Subsequently, after their Overtime EP came some of their biggest hits like Surrender, Devil, Lightning, and Untouchable. Now, to the album's downfall, it actually is mostly their previous singles. Although this album is 16 tracks long, 9 of these were actually dropped before the album's release. Of course, a few of those were pre-order singles, but a good chunk of these were released in years past in the last 3 years. Now, in concept, I do like to see where they're going and how they put so much heart into this album over the last 3 years. The fact that just so many of their previous singles were thrown on this one just really saddens me. Especially Take Me Home, which I really liked at its time of release. I'm very annoyed with its appearance on this one. All in all, I'd say this Cash Cash album feels like a Cash Cash greatest hits album, except it's without some of their greatest hits like Party in Your Bedroom, Untouchable with Tritonal, and of course Overtime, which I absolutely can't understand why that wasn't featured on this album. Overtime was probably one of their most unique singles to date and made for one of the reasons why the Overtime EP was so good, along with some other good tracks on there. I feel like that EP made for a better debut sound than this album does, in all honesty. Not to say there aren't some good ones on this album, but it's really just not doing a lot for me. Even some of the pre-order tracks have lost their luster since this album was announced. How to Love is one that I really liked in the beginning, and I still like a lot for the most part, but one thing that's really bugging me is Sophia Ray's vocals. Throughout, after listening to this one a bunch of times, they just sound extremely whiny, as well as Nelly's appearance on Millionaire is just not doing anything for me. What initially was kind of cool, and I thought it was kind of fun to have the "Hey, must be the money" sample on there, it turns out to just be really cheesy and just a really bland reference to Nelly's biggest song, along with the drop that sounds like it should have come from Justin Bieber's last album, which of course takes blatant inspiration from Skrillex. In other ways, there are some spots on this album where their older singles are doing more for me than they were initially. I ended up liking Devil a lot more featured on this album than I did as a single, as well as Surrender. I think that one makes an awesome closer, which I wasn't even expecting, although I did like the Tritonal remix a bit better. I think this one fits really well into the album. I think Escarole is another one that I liked a little bit more in this album than a single. I actually hated it when it dropped as a single, but out of this album I think it's one of the better ones, taking a little bit more of the bass house and future house styles, which is very limited on this album, luckily. I think the only thing that could have made this album sound worse is trying to make a really cheesy future bass song, which in the last 3 years we've clearly seen Cash Cash kind of following EDM trends, starting out in progressive house and continuing into trap music. And we get the tropical house music and of course that Skrillex-esque club vibes that we get on tracks like Broken Drum and Millionaire. Now, given how much I really didn't like this album, there were some really good appearances in here, I can't deny it. I still like How to Love quite a bit, and I really like the new single with Christina Perri, which is called Hero, and I haven't really heard anything from Christina Perri since the song 1,000 Years, which I'm pretty sure it was a big radio hit. I think it was on like the Breaking Dawn Twilight soundtrack. But I think this makes for a really good comeback for her, although I think the progressive house drop on this kind of takes away from the seriousness and emotion that I feel like the verses were bringing in this and Christina Perri's vocals. Much like on Project 46's debut album Beautiful, when they just straight up cut out drops and made just pop songs for the album, I feel like Cash Cash could have done that for this song. In other parts, there's Lightning featuring John Resnick of Goo Goo Dolls, which I always liked, and especially like the combination of Goo Goo Dolls and EDM. I feel like those work really well together, and I would have liked to see John Resnick work with more EDM artists in the future, but I don't think it's happened since this song. Another one of the new ones that I really liked is the song Sweat, which in its undertones actually sounds like it has driplets of sweat it's sampled in it, even though obviously that's not it. You kind of get the picture that this track is trying to paint. I feel like this one definitely put to shame other trap songs on this album, like Devil and The Gun. In my opinion, I think what Cash Cash should have done with their debut was kind of forget about most of their previous singles. In fact, I think it would have been better if they would have thrown away just about every single from the last 3 years other than the pre-order tracks. Completely showed a redesigned sound and something that varied from their previous material that we've seen over what they've been doing in the last 3 years. But instead, this album just feels like a rerun of everything they've done already. For Blood, Sweat, and 3 Years, I'm feeling a 2.5. No regrets on that one, even though I had some regrets on giving Thousand Foot Krutch the same rating. An album that, although I was looking forward to hearing, ended up being a complete letdown. I think people who are really new to the EDM scene and to Cash Cash's music might find this a little bit more diverse, and will probably enjoy this one a lot more, but for someone who's kind of delved in the EDM world, this album is far from unique. If you do want to listen to this album, I have the stream linked in the description. If you have listened to it, let me know what you think about it in the comments. Anyway, I'm Landon Remixes. I hope you guys enjoyed this review, and I'll see you later. Peace.